Welcome back to Podiatry Marketing. I'm your host, Jim McDannald. Joined as always by my trusty co-host, Tyson Franklin. Tyson, how's it going today?
I am fantastic today, Big Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm kind of curious about how your maple and your whiskey experiment came along. Is that something that you want to let us know about?
Well, I haven't actually made it myself yet. I'm
Okay.
I I need to go and get some. I need to go and buy just some cheaper whiskey, and I've got maple syrup because I always have maple syrup. I have maple syrup every single day. But what stopped me was a friend from Canada visited, and he gave me a bottle of maple whiskey.
There you go.
And can you say that word? I can't say it. Can you?
Sortilege?
Uh, yeah, it sounds
Sortilege?
sort of French, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
And um, it's from it just says product of Canada. Oh, it's from Montreal, Quebec. This is probably why it's like a slightly French name.
Yeah.
So it's a whiskey liqueur with maple syrup in it. So I've been drinking that. I haven't got around
So,
to making it, but I'm going to try. I will
okay.
give it a test. But if anyone's listening to this, and you find anything with maple syrup in it that you think I would like, send it to me. It's, it's anything with maple syrup. I just love it. I'm addicted to the stuff. It's terrible.
That's great.
So, should we get on to today's topic?
Let's do it. What are we going to talk about today?
Okay, so today's topic is not about maple syrup again. We are going to talk about which marketing metrics actually matter and basically which ones you should be measuring and which ones are just noise and can get in the way. And this sometimes confuses a lot of podiatrists because they always, you hear people talk about, oh, you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. And that is the numbers of your business, the financial numbers. But there's the other set of numbers or the metrics of your business, which are just as important. But it can get confusing because you'll have, for example, if you're posting on social media like Facebook or Instagram, if you're running ads, if you're sending emails, or even just maintaining your website, you get bombarded with so much information from, everyone would have heard these terms: likes, impressions, open rates, click rates, bounce rates, and engagement percentages, etc., etc., etc. It just goes on. So there's so many things that you can look at all that, and it can just get really, really overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, you can kind of get distracted and not really understand what numbers are, moving your business forward and what are just more vanity metrics for sure.
Yeah, and that's why not all metrics deserve your attention. There might be some things that might be really important to one business. Like if you're an influencer, then maybe likes are important. But don't think there's too many podiatry influencers out there that the patients in their like local area, and like last week talked about the whole local SEO. I think that your local area really cares sometimes how many likes you actually have. There's basically more to it. So there's some of what they call, there's two types of metrics: vanity metrics and performance metrics. So vanity metrics, basically they just look at the vanity metrics don't really look much about how your business is actually growing. So if you look at how many likes you get on a particular post, or how many followers you have, or how many page views, that might make you feel really good. And there are sometimes they do. I must admit, if I post something and you get a ton of likes, it really does make you feel good. But rarely does that translate to direct revenue for your business. That's the scary part. Whereas the performance metrics, they're the ones that you should be tracking. They're the ones you should be measuring and use to actually make better decisions. So how many leads are generated, how many appointments are actually booked, how many calls are made, patients that are retained. They're the real outcomes that are going to drive your business. So I would you could have 10,000 likes somewhere, but I'd rather 100 phone calls.
Well, those vanity metrics sometimes will give you that little dopamine hit, right? Like, oh, they liked it. Oh, wow. Like it kind of is like a something that makes you kind of go back into those different social media platforms. But you're right. You have to be focused on what's moving your business forward.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I remember was it the Social Network? Was that the name of the movie? The one about Facebook
Yeah,
when it
the
got started?
Facebook movie.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the thing why they end up putting that section there about the like. They understand that that little dopamine hit that you get, and every time you pick up your phone and you're scrolling through Facebook, that's what keeps people on there. It's the little hits they get from the stuff that they post themselves, and it's also looking at what other people are doing. So it's and you can waste a lot of time looking at the wrong thing. I think that's the scariest part about social media. You can go down a rabbit hole really, really quickly.
Absolutely.
So I've got here my top 5 marketing metrics you should actually track. Almost need a drum roll for that.
What's number one? Come on.
Number
Should we go
one,
number five? It's number five. I don't know.
oh, it's in no specific order. Well, it's sort of no, but this is sort of number 5, and it's going to work its way down. But new patient leads. How many genuine inquiries are you getting each week? And where are they coming from? So it's like, and this is the important part too, when it comes to your referral sources, not all referral sources are equal. You might get a lot of calls from one particular place. Say, for example, you had 2 medical centers. One, you got 100 referrals or leads through that medical center, and the other one, you only got 10. It's what happens with those people long term is actually more important. Just the numbers itself is, once again, is almost like a vanity type thing. But it's how many genuine inquiries you get each week from what it is that you're actually doing. That's the first thing that you really should be measuring. And we used to have a phone sheet. Some of my clients, I've given them this phone sheet, and I'll say to them, for certain periods of time, have it at the reception desk while you're doing different marketing campaigns. Every time that phone rings, every time someone walks into your clinic, note down the time, and also ask them, write down what the inquiry was all about, because that will relate to what sort of marketing you're doing. So if you're doing a big push on fungal nails, you should get more people inquiring about fungal nails. If you've done a big push on fungal nails and spent a lot of money on that and you're not getting one inquiry from it, whatever you're doing doesn't work.
No, absolutely. I think one of those things that a lot of even digital marketers will sometimes kind of over rely on either analytic data, Google Analytics data, or Google Ads. But sometimes phone calls come in, sometimes things aren't attributed properly. So, kind of a way to mark that down on paper can be a great way to kind of figure out the attribution of what was causing that, right? And kind of help you, like you said, kind of figure out who those people coming in and making sure they're genuine inquiries based off the things you've been doing.
Yeah, so we used to have a new sheet each day. You just sit there at the front counter, and the receptionist would give me that sheet at the end of the day. And it was a really valuable piece of information because I knew what marketing had going on. So I really wanted to see, like, for example, if we were doing fungal toenails, we'd have the time, because I knew what was running when certain things were popping up. And you would see, they try and get the person's name, their contact, their email address if we could. So if we get follow-up information, that's a totally different podcast altogether. The money's in the follow-up. But I'd also get the receptionist to put their initials next to it on who actually took that call. Because if, say, for example, Joanne took 5 calls, but only 1 out of 5 were making an appointment, and Barbara was taking the calls and she was getting 4 out of 5 making an appointment, then I would look at that sheet and go, okay, well, what's Barbara doing that the other one isn't? So that was really and that's the next thing you should be measuring is your patient conversion rate. Of those inquiries, how many actually book and attend an appointment? That is super important.
No, absolutely. You have to know that conversion rate. Like you talked about, if someone's not, kind of helping you convert those patients that are inquiring, there's some teachable moments that can be had between maybe you and the employee, or maybe the two employees can talk about it.
Yeah. And what people got to remember, if they've listened to other podcasts, I have mentioned conversion rates before, and that might be when a new patient comes in, how many gets orthotics, and that's got to do with the podiatry skills and communication. This patient conversion one is really just through your metrics. You've done some form of marketing, you're getting the phone calls coming through, so that's how many leads. Then this is how many actually book and actually keep an appointment.
Absolutely.
The The next thing you want to take a look at there, and this is really important, is how much did it cost you per lead? So how much are you spending, ad costs and also time costs, to attract each new inquiry? Because that will also let you know, when you're keeping track of where the people are sort of coming from, you might be spending a lot of money in one area and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm getting phone calls from that. You might be spending or putting less time in another area and getting 4 times more of the inquiries. So all of a sudden, when you realize that, you go, aha, that's an aha moment. You double down and you put more time and effort and money into the one that's bringing in the patients. And even though people might go, oh, well, that just seems logical. It is logical, but not everybody does it. And I'm sure people listening to this now, when was the last time you sat back and actually really looked at your cost per lead, where these people are coming from and what you're spending, and where this other group of people are coming from and what you're spending, and really thought about it? I don't think not too many people do it.
I mean, I think people even don't do the step before that, which is to really look and see where their patients are coming from. Like,
Yeah.
what locations are they coming from first and foremost? Like you said, that's part of that cost per lead, which can be definitely calculated, but just to know which, locations, which neighboring cities, which neighborhoods are people coming from. So then you can go after more of those people. But yeah, your cost per lead is definitely a super important metric. But just like you said, no one's really doing. Very few are really doing that.
Yeah. Well, I learned this back I did a talk on this, I think, in 1996. I remember doing a talk at an event, and the talk was how to create $1 million podiatry clinic. This was the talk that I did. Oh, did I cop it from so many podiatrists at this conference that, oh, how dare you say, and this is back in 1996, so it's a while ago. How dare you say that you can have $1 million podiatry clinic? I said, well, you could if you do this. Ah, that's just crap. You can't. Yeah, it's just impossible. Now, time's moved on, and everyone knows it is possible. But one of the things in that, I did the talk and I said, you've got these 2 ads, and you spend the same amount of money in both those ads. One gives you 100 leads, you get 100 phone calls from it, and this one you only get 10 leads. Which is the better ad? And also, everyone's going, oh, the one that got 100. I go, well, you don't know yet. I said, you really don't know. Just give you 100 leads. I said, but if out of those 10, 9 out of 10 book in, and out of those 100, say 10 out of 10 book in, or
Yeah.
10 out of 100 book in. I said, which is the better ad? And they go, oh, well, one that you got 9 out of 10. I said, well, you don't know yet. Because you got to keep following it. What
Right.
happens with these patients as they go through? So sometimes people would just look at the activity, which is almost like the vanity metrics, and they
Right.
get excited about that and think, oh, we should just keep getting more money in that because it's getting the phone ringing. But if
No,
it's not
absolutely.
converting, there's no point.
Yeah, the conversion is key.
Yeah. So the next thing, so far we've gone through new patient leads, patient conversion rate, how many you actually book and keep an appointment, how much it costs you per lead to get those appointments. And the next thing is your patient retention rate. How many patients come back for additional treatments and reviews? Because you can have your thing where you have a pile of people coming for their initial visit, but if they then don't follow up with more treatment later or follow a treatment plan that you put in place, then those patients weren't really worth a lot of money to you.
No, it's kind of a leaky bucket, right? You're hoping that
Yeah.
people will come in, have great care, receive follow up care, and then maybe they'll see you back, and if after they're kind of done that course of treatment, they'll come back again, and then since they're familiar with you, you're more likely to get additional referrals, to friends and family from that. But if someone is a one and done, um, yeah, it's kind of they're kind of out of that system, and you're going to be paying for that brand new patient again. So you have to find ways to retain those patients.
And the reason this is important to know, and this is something that I think every employee, if you own a podiatry business and you have employees, they need to understand this thing I'm about to explain. If you're advertising and you're marketing, if you look at all your marketing that you do, right from running your website, the cost of having your website, the cost of your uniforms, that's all part of your marketing. You put all your marketing together. That's how you work out how much it's actually costing you per new patient that walks in your clinic. And you'll be surprised how much this all adds up to. When you divide it by how many new patients you have per year, that tells you how much it costs you per patient. And I knew when we used to do ours, say, for example, it cost us $100 to get a new patient sitting in our chair. If the initial visit at the time back then was only $90 and they never had another appointment, I lost $10 on that patient. There was no point. So you need to know what it costs to get each patient in, and therefore you may not make any money from a patient until the second visit, until the third visit. But this is where smart businesses are thinking long term, and your team needs to understand. And then if you've got a podiatrist that's on a percentage, it gets even worse because part of that money is going to them. So you're making even less for that first visit. So if they don't have anything other than that, every time they come in, you're losing money, but the podiatrist working for you is making money.
Yeah,
So
that's a recipe for disaster over the long term.
Yeah, and that's why some clinics go, oh, we're so busy and we've got so many people coming in, but we're just not really getting ahead. It's because you don't understand these numbers. And some people will set up a business and they'll go, oh, what's the podiatrist down the road charge? They charge this. Okay, well, I'm gonna undercut them. You don't realize that you're spending more to get patients in than you're actually charging them. So unless they come back, you're not actually making any money.
Yeah, you're saving yourself out of business in a way.
So this next thing is the next thing you want to measure is your per patient value. So it's how much is each patient booked worth to you on average per consultation? And you might go, well, I know that this is what they pay for this and this is what they pay for that. But what you should do is look at the total patients that are booked in for a week and then divide that by the total revenue that you make that week. And that gives every patient a value. And you count every patient. So even the patient that's just coming in for a quick review or something that you're not even charging them for, they're still counted. You might have a person that's coming in for an orthotic fitting and they're charging $600 and they're only with you 15 minutes. That's just one patient. When you divide that out, that gives you a per patient value. The reason for doing this is over a period of time is as you get more efficient, you're seeing better quality patients, more the ones that you like, you should see your per patient value going up. And you should measure this for your whole clinic, and then you should measure it per podiatrist as well. And everyone should be pretty close, depending on the type of patients you're seeing. So when I had the clinic, I was only doing biomechanical patients. I didn't do any routine foot care. So my per patient value should have been way higher than someone who was doing 30% routine foot care and 70% biomechanical patients. Does that make sense?
No,
Is that
absolutely.
clear?
Very crystal clear.
Okay, that's good. Crystal. Yeah. If you had said clear as mud, it would have gone, okay, we have problems. And the best part too, when you actually know your per patient value, people go, well, what's the value? Yeah, but what's the benefit of knowing this? One, you can see who's performing and underperforming. But the other part is you could look at your week ahead, and if you know your per patient value is $100, for example, which is actually quite low. So if your per patient value is under $100, that actually is quite low. But say, for example, it's 100, and you've got 100 patients booked in that week. 100 times 100, you know you're going to make 10 grand that week. Without even going through any figures, you should know if nobody else books in this week, you're going to make 10 grand. Nice and simple. And that also, so therefore that helps you planning with purchasing equipment, paying bills. If you want to get bonuses, it's just a really good figure to actually know and understand. If you have any questions on this, please reach out to Jim or reach out to myself and we will help you.
Absolutely.
Now, and this, so I got here why, one thing I just wanted to mention too, why focusing just on likes can actually be dangerous. And sort of touched on it before, that you can have 10,000 followers and have an empty appointment book. Yeah, you might be a podiatry influencer. Tens of thousands of followers, but unless those people are booking, it doesn't really matter. Or you can have 100 engaged people that they're loyal followers and they book appointments on a regular basis. That is far better than having, what do they call it, 10,000 passive scrollers that are flicking through your page. You better have smaller numbers. I know some podiatry clinics that have been doing really well, really well. And then you go to all their social media stuff and it's really average. Like they post good stuff. I mean, the quality of the stuff they post is fantastic, but they do not have thousands of followers. They've got like 400 people following their pages. But when they post something, they're getting 50 or 60 people are actually liking it. And it's not their mum, cousin, brother, nephew, auntie, grandfather.
Yeah, I think there's a book called like it talks about kind of like 1,000 true fans. You know, if you
Oh,
have
yeah.
I forgot who it's like the guy that used to be the editor at Wired magazine, but you know, it's that thing where, you know, you don't need a million people, you don't need, you know, you don't need 100,000, you don't need 10,000, you just need 1,000 people that,
Mm.
you know, that can they'll vouch for you, that are, you know, maybe that are 1,000 loyal patients that come to the practice, that speak well to you about to people in the community. So, you know, focus on treating people well, and you kind of, you know, find ways to treat them the best you can, and they'll help you out. So it's yeah, it's kind of that 1,000 true fan idea.
Yeah. And it all comes, I think a lot of this stuff too, it all comes down to, that's why it's really important to understand what your goals are in your business.
Yeah,
If you really don't know what it is you're trying to achieve from your business, then you can't put things in place to actually make it a reality. Um, getting too, just going off track here. So anyway, so people will often ask, how often should you look at your metrics? You can do it monthly. You can do weekly check-ins just to see if campaigns are working. Like I used to have that sheet at the front reception. I used to give that to me every day. It was just a little bit of a daily reflection on what was happening. Even though, yeah, in my notes I actually wrote down here, said don't obsess daily, but I did.
practice what you preach, Tyson.
Yeah, but I did. I used to look at that. I wouldn't sit there and look at that sheet and just go, oh, I'm going to lose sleep over it. But I
Yeah,
would just look at that because I knew what marketing was going on. But I would grab all those sheets, and at the end of the week, I would do a reflection on how that week was going. Then at the end of the month, I would gather all the figures together, and I'd spend an hour or two just going over it, using that to plan for the next month.
there you go.
So uh, the other thing is you should have like a simple dashboard set up and just like track and measure like only about three to five different metrics that tie directly with the business growth. Like those ones that I went over, I think that's all you really need to, like there's other numbers you can look at if you really want to dig into your business.
Hmm.
But as far as looking at is your marketing working, they're the easiest ones to do. Zig Ziglar used to always say, yeah, was it paralysis analysis
Yeah,
or analysis paralysis, where you're digging so much into the numbers, you don't even really know what you're looking at. And numbers are only useful if they're driving bad decisions. And use the information, like if you're gathering information, just use it wisely. Like I said, I would sit down at the end of the month, look at everything, and I'd use that to make decisions in future months. I'd
I
make
mean,
decisions on if I'm going to keep marketing in certain areas.
absolutely. Whether it be different platforms provide so much data these
Mm,
days, you can really drill down into things that don't matter. You really need to be looking at kind of general trends over time, you know, from quarter to quarter. Like you talked about, the metrics you bring up are great things to kind of track over time. But yeah, there's so much granularity and so much ways just to kind of like, you know, go way too deep into it. So try to look at things from different levels, and try to look for trends more than you are, like you said, obsessing over daily numbers or daily details.
yeah, I was reading something just recently, or it might have been on a podcast, and they were just talking about if you want to know what, yeah, say a video to shoot, if you're putting something on YouTube, is have a look at some of your past videos and which ones did well. There'll be a reason they did well because it'll be a topic that people like and are searching for. That's something you can look at. So therefore, do more of those videos. Don't come up with some wacky ones that no one cares about. So
Absolutely.
it's really think about it. So just the final notes, just remind people, not all metrics are equal. So only focus on what you know is going to drive the growth of your business. Track new leads, the conversions, cost per lead, your patient retention, and the average revenue per patient. I just think that's important. Don't overcomplicate your dashboard. Just have a simple. I know some people do it electronic. Mine was manual. We used to just have all these things, and I'd get the receptionist to fill in these figures at the end of the week for me, give it to me, put together as a month. I'd put that in a folder. Therefore, it didn't matter whether I had electricity or not. I could sit down at the beach with my folders. I could go through them. That was just how my brain worked. That's why I still have, brain
Was that
books that
was
I
that
write.
before electricity? You said I didn't. Before electricity?
That was before electricity. When I used to get the dinosaur drop me off at work. It was, but it's true. I always found that's why I still have, my brain books where I write my notes
Sure.
and everything in, because some of the ideas or thoughts or notes that I gather in here, I can take this away anywhere. I can sit down on the beach. I can be on a bus, which I've been on a bus for 10 years, but I could be. And but if I was, I could pull this out and I can read through it. As long as I've got another pen or pencil, I can write down thoughts and ideas. I don't have to have a computer with me all the time. And the last thing I want to say is marketing isn't about looking popular. It's about staying profitable. So you could be super popular and broke, or you could be not as popular and be making really good money.
Yeah, a lot of these things need to tie to business objectives, like you mentioned, and not vanity metrics. So it's you can have 100,000 followers, but if it's not helping you drive, great business outcomes, it's not worth your time.
Yeah. And I was talking to a couple of podiatrists recently, and one podiatrist I was doing some work with, and she's decided to move on because she wants to be part of a group. Part of a group coaching thing, which is fine because some people are suited to groups because they need to be bouncing ideas off other people. But I've got other clients who I've said that to them, if you want to go and join a group, by all means. And they're like, why would I do that? I'm so far ahead of where the group thinking is that I don't want to be dragged back down into the group. I want to excel, and you're helping me actually excel. And they've got this type of mentality. They know what works. They know what they should be measuring, and they just keep building on it from there.
Sounds like a recipe for success there.
Okay, Big Jim, that's it for me. I've ranted and raved too much today.
No, this has been great, Tyson. Thanks a lot for the helpful information here, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time.
I will be here. See you there. See you in the future. See you next week. Okay, see you later. Bye.
Bye, Tyson.